What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's lesson is brought to you by you guys. On my previous video on this channel, I did a deep dive into Bitcoin and what I'm looking at and where I think Bitcoin's bottom is going to be. In that video, I made a throwaway line about 6 altcoins that I'm considering investing in should the bull market resume, and all I got was comments saying, what are the 6 coins? So I didn't mean for that to be a clickbait video. The reason that I didn't discuss them in that video was because it was a dedicated Bitcoin video and I didn't want it to take up too much time. Also, I knew that we have a lot of time before any altcoins are going to be ready to be invested in my opinion. I mentioned in that video that I'm basically sitting on my hands for the rest of January and looking to get back into the market first to second week-ish of February, providing all the conditions are met. So there is no rush to talk about these coins, but you guys want them so bad, so let's do it. If it's your first time here, welcome to the channel. I hope that you enjoy this content and I hope that you get something out of it. If you're returning, welcome back. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit all the bell notifications so that you can be notified every time I upload a new video. And also don't forget to leave me a comment down below on what your thoughts are, as it really helps to get this video around the internet. So as I said in my previous video, I mentioned 6 altcoins that I would be looking to invest in should the bull market continue. Before I get into what those coins are, I want to explain to you my process of thinking around choosing these 6 out of the thousands that are available on the internet. Now, I'm a big fan of following the big money. It's the simplest way to do it. Whatever the big money is investing in, that's what I care about. In my last video, I discussed what is it going to take for this bull market to continue, and one of my theories was that it's going to take a lot of institutional money to come through, potentially via the approval of Bitcoin ETFs. And so with that theory in mind, it makes sense to me to think about if institutions can start getting in with Bitcoin, what would they start looking at next, and what are they actually able to do, if anything at all? So having a look at this article, you can see here that it says 84% of institutional investors are interested in cryptocurrency, which goes to show that an ETF is needed. So a survey was done of more than 1,000 institutional investors from across the US, Europe, and Asia, which found that most believe digital assets have a place in a portfolio and were interested in crypto-based products such as ETFs. Over half were already invested in digital assets, predominantly Bitcoin and Ethereum, and nearly 9 in 10 said they found crypto appealing, especially in terms of its high potential upside. So that just goes to show that there is an immense amount of institutional interest. What we need to find out is what particular coins they're actually interested in. And here's another interesting result. It says, the survey results reinforce views of finance professionals surveyed by Deloitte earlier this year. 76% of those respondents said they believed crypto would be a strong alternative to or outright replace fiat money within the next decade. That's crazy. Now, looking at this is an old article, but it's relevant because it says here, institutions now hold 3% of Bitcoin supply, and this was in February 14, 2021. Now, recently they had a Bitcoin conference in Miami, and it was stated at that conference that they believe that currently institutions represent 4%. However, here's the kicker. They were saying that they estimate by 2030 that will be 60%. So that is an insane amount of money that could come in via institutions. And this is where we have the advantage, which has never happened before, because usually the opportunities always go to the already wealthy, and then we as retail investors can hopefully jump onto things after. But in the case of cryptocurrency, we get to be in first because they are governed by regulation and we get to make our own choices. So we need to find out when they are allowed to come on board, what are they going to be most interested in, so that we can get in much before them, and then all we have to do is wait. One more article here from Kathy Wood says that 5% of institutional money can increase Bitcoin's price by $500,000. That's just 5% of institutional money, and we're talking Bitcoin alone. So here's how hedge funds work currently. Any hedge fund in most countries, that manage over $100 million of assets must have a third-party custodian, and that's for safety reasons. It reduces the risk of getting hacked. It also gives the investors a little bit more certainty that, you know, they're not going to just run away with their money, things like that. The problem with that, however, is that it limits what hedge funds can actually invest in right now. And so there are some custodians that are paving the way and are going through the process to be able to allow hedge fund managers to invest in certain protocols. And there are some that are paving the way that already have that approval on a few of them and are in the process of getting approval on a few more. And then further down the line, hopefully we'll then go through the process of even more than that. So this is what we need to know. And because this allows hedge funds to be able to buy certain things on centralized exchanges and have a little bit more freedom. Whereas for us as retail investors, we could buy something, for example, that we believe in, move it somewhere else, stake it, earn interest on it and things like that. But because of this third-party custodian rule, hedge fund managers can't do that right now. And so that's why when these things are worked on and they eventually do get those approvals, a hell of a lot more money should flow into those things because the opportunities become so much more greater for hedge funds. So our role is to figure out what is that, and let's get in on that before they do. So if you want to know what the 6 coins are that I am personally talking about and why, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into it. Okay, so the first one is obviously Ethereum. Ethereum's a no-brainer because everybody knows what Ethereum is, whether you're new into the space or you've been here for a long time. We all know what it is. It was the first cryptocurrency of its kind, so it has that advantage. It also has the largest decentralized application ecosystem, and it's not that far from Bitcoin's market cap. Also, for the most part, with all of the other protocols that are out there, you often have to use a chain to bridge from Ethereum to anything else. So it's just the leader when we talk about layer ones. Now, currently Ethereum can be used by fund managers, so it does fall into the lower risk of the 6 coins that I'm going to talk about. So having a look at the chart, the area that I'm looking at for Ethereum is down here at around the $1,800 mark. Prior to filming this video, I actually was watching this current level here, which used to be a resistance at 2,300, but we have just broken that level. So, and it looks like we're breaking it quite strong, to be honest with you. So I don't actually see much in the way that would now stop Ethereum from getting to that 1780 kind of level, because this really was the last line of defense. So my ideal buy for Ethereum, again, dependent on Bitcoin not dropping or breaking the $30,000 support, is going to be at around 1780. Should we not get that low and we actually change market structure beforehand, there's not really a trend line that I can draw to break that would then make me decide to get in. If I draw a trend line down here, it's very far away from where price is right now. So I would have to wait for market structure to change if it didn't make it all the way down to the 1780 area, and then reassess from there. My invalidation is going to be a break of that 1780 area. So if we break this support down here, I will not be buying yet. I'll be waiting a little bit longer. The second one that I am looking at the moment is MATIC, and MATIC is also one of the protocols that fund managers can currently already use. This is a little bit harder one to decide where to buy because we have just broken trend. So this is extremely bearish. And also the current demand zone doesn't seem too far away. I am going to take a quick look at Bitcoin first. So this was a Bitcoin chart from my last video, and we've just broken that 33 support. So a drop down into the 30K support is going to be about an 11% drop. If Bitcoin drops 11% into that 30K, MATIC, I would imagine, would drop much further than this. So I'm actually going to adjust this buy zone down to this zone here to reassess when we get there. So I'm looking for buys at around the $1 mark for MATIC, of course, depending on it holding support there and then changing market structure. Should we break that level, that's my invalidation zone, and I will do a whole new setup and wait a little bit longer for it to be the right time. I think it's important to note that I'm not rushing to buy into any of these things. Again, if you watch my previous video on Bitcoin, you'll know that I'm basically out of the market for the rest of this month, and I don't really expect any relief until probably early Feb, first couple of weeks of Feb. So this is a very early video to come out. We may drop a lot lower because this sell-off isn't over. If it does happen and we break these supports, I'll probably refilm this video and do new levels if I think that there is still hope in these coins. Now, for the next two on my list, I talked about Ethereum and the advantages of Ethereum. The downside to Ethereum is that the network is really slow. And so the next two coins solve that problem by having a much faster network. And I'm of course talking about Solana and Luna. Now, in addition to them being faster networks, they are also the next two layer ones that these custodial services are looking to add, which then exposes hedge funds to the entire Solana and Luna ecosystem. So therefore, that makes wanting to invest in Solana and Luna a no-brainer at the right price. However, as a long-term investment, with then the opportunity to day trade everything on their ecosystem for a shorter term gain. So let's take a look at Solana. I'm looking at around the $80 mark, anywhere in this zone, which is between $65 to $80. It looks like we're going to come right in there right now. So it really does depend on Bitcoin turning around from here. If we break this level, again, that's my invalidation. I'll be waiting a little bit longer. The next potential level, if we break this zone, is probably going to be around the $55 area. But let's see what happens in this zone so far, and then decide if we need to reassess. Moving on, in the same boat as Solana, I would put Luna. It's crazy how with everything that's going on in the market right now, Luna is still respecting its trend line. However, I do think at some point that will probably break. Luna is a bit of a harder one for me to know where to buy because it's currently, as I said, respecting its uptrend. However, if Bitcoin does have a really harsh sell-off, it could be that we break this zone. So first of all, I need to see if we are able to maintain this current support of $53. I'm honestly not that hopeful that we will. So I am going to look at a little bit lower. However, if we do bounce off that level, that would be my first entry in. And I think it's important to note as I say that when I do invest in coins, I dollar cost average into coins. So I don't just pick one price and then hope it turns out. I will average in little bits over time. So if we respect this trend line and we hold above the $53 mark, that might be the first area that I buy. If we break it, I'm actually going to look at this area here. When we had this sell-off, we pushed up and then we came back to test it. So I'm actually looking at around $38, and that might be a little bit overly ambitious. However, it would be a 35% drop from where we are now, which if Bitcoin does a 10 to 12% drop, that it might happen. So I'm going to keep this area as the area to have my eye out on should we break the trend line for Luna. And my invalidation would be if we broke below there, it would need an entirely new setup. And the next one on my list is Algo, and Algo is definitely in the high risk portion. It's just a maybe at the moment. I don't actually think there is anything going on to try and allow fund managers to get into the Algo ecosystem, but it seems likely that it would be one if they were working on more options with the whole, El Salvador using Algorand and whatnot. So it seems like it makes sense, but there's nothing out there at the moment. So this is definitely in the high risk bucket. And I am watching this level here that is the previous support at around 70 cents. Again, I do think we're going to break through that if Bitcoin does head down to 30,000. So it will take a whole new setup if we break this level. I can't even really say where I would buy if we broke that level next, because there's nothing here. This is just a nice trend. There's nothing here that stands out to me as a very, very strong support level like this does. We can see here that it will support multiple times. So if we do break this level, it's going to be a matter of waiting for new market structure, seeing some bulls come back and start to push price back up again for me to want to get involved. However, if we can hold this level and bounce off, then that's going to be the ideal level for me. And the last one that I'm looking at is Avax. Avax is in the high risk as well. There's nothing out there, but it makes sense that it would be. So I'm eyeing off this area as a number one that is currently holding as support. Again, not feeling that optimistic that we will hold there, but it is the strongest level so far at the time of filming this. So we're looking at around $54 if we can bounce off there. If not, I'm actually actually looking down here a little bit lower between $35 and say around $40 area. That's going to be my last hope kind of area. You can see here it was a pretty key level basically for the whole of 2021. So that's the level that I'm looking at. And I'd say if Bitcoin does drop to 30K, it's probably likely that we will come in here somewhere around here. Okay guys, so there you have it. Those are the 6 coins that I'm looking at with my ideal entry zones dependent on what Bitcoin does next. Again, note that this isn't a signal to buy them now. You are not getting in early if you buy them now. Don't also automatically buy when they hit the zones that I've talked about. We need to reassess once we get there and make sure the market is actually going to then change and become bullish again. So Bitcoin number one, that's the first thing that we're watching. Once we can see that Bitcoin is stable and trending up again, if it does, then we can start looking at these altcoins. For now, you can just prepare, plan, and pick your own entries. And if you haven't checked out my video from the other day on the deep dive into Bitcoin and where I think the bottom might be, I will link that video up here. Be sure to check that out as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget, like, subscribe, comment, share, all that kind of stuff. Let's get this stuff around the internet. I will see you on the next one.